the Hyperice Show with your host, Christopher Allen, where we explore the art of mind and body conditioning. Hyperice, makers of the Hypervolt massage therapy device, have signed Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes as both a brand ambassador and an investor in the company. This adds to Hyperice's already impressive pro athlete roster that increases the visibility of this $100 million company. Also, Intellivideo hires the former CEO of Gold's Gym as it strives to be a business-to-business digital fitness platform for gyms and health clubs. And finally, we take another look at in-home fitness giant Peloton, this time looking at the meteoric rise and the inevitable competition and lofty performance expectations looming for this digital fitness company. So, let's dive in. Our first news story is about Patrick Mahomes joining performance recovery technology company Hyperice as both an investor and a brand ambassador. Now, terms of his equity stake were not announced or disclosed by the company, but Hyperice, which was founded back in 2010 in Irvine, California, says it uses a combination of percussion, vibration, and thermal technology in its recovery and fitness equipment and makes the popular Hypervolt massage device. And at Hyperice, their mission is to provide athletes with a set of tools that improve performance by accelerating recovery time, preventing injury, and enhancing the body's ability to move more efficiently. And that's what their focus is on all their product development for world-class athletes. Now, Mahomes will use his name and his image, or the company will use his name and image to promote Hyperice in its global recovery technology category. The company said that he will also certainly increase the brand awareness of Hyperice's newly launched HyperSmart connected technology devices and data-driven digital ecosystem. Now, Mahomes is a big fan of the company, not surprising if he's going to invest. He's actually used Hyperice throughout his career as part of his overall training and recovery routines to make sure that he's performing at his peak level. He said, Mahomes said that the partnership provides him the resources to accelerate his recovery time after playing football. Now, in March of 2020, Hyperice acquired Normatek. And Normatek is a popular compression system. You see a lot of these things with leg. They're like huge sleeves that you put your legs in that provides compression to help athletes with muscle tissue recovery. And it looks to gain market share of what the CEO is generally calling the sports technology marketplace, projected to be worth about $30 billion by 2024. Pretty big marketplace. The Hyperice CEO, Jim Huther, is expecting the company to double its $100 million revenue that it earned in 2019 with the addition of Normatek as it continues its sales progress. And the Normatek compression system helps players really with recovery of muscle tissue, assisting in preventing blood clots in the legs, tightness, and soreness. Now, how much is a Normatek system? You can find it on Amazon for a little over $1,000. But if you want to buy a new one on the Normatek website, the newest, latest, greatest version of their leg compression system sells for more than $2,000. So, of course, professional sports athletes, professional sports teams are looking to allow their training staff to have a pool of these recovery devices for all of their athletes are prime customers. And as such, Hyperice also signed a deal with the National Basketball Association, the NBA, to occupy the league's official recovery technology partner sponsorship slot. I think it's funny that there's a slot for everything. You can be the official anything for anyone, pretty much. But Hyperice is probably the leader in that recovery technology. And they're looking specifically for Patrick Mahomes, who is probably one of, if not the face of the NFL. He's dynamic, he's young, he's versatile. I think the Chiefs are still 4-0 as of this recording. I'm a Chargers fan, so I'm not a big Chiefs fan. But as impressive as Mahomes is on the field, he's also invested in the company and thinking about future earnings opportunities. And Mahomes, just as an aside for him, this isn't his only deal. Like, he signed a 10-year, $500 million extension with the Chiefs, so he also became a minority owner in Major League Baseball's Kansas City Royals franchise. He's an equity partner in sports nutrition company BioSteel, has a partnership deals with State Farm. He's got a deal with Adidas. He's got a deal with Oakley for sunglasses. And 25-year-old kid, he's doing all right. And Mahomes is not the only celebrity that is invested in Hyperice. There's quite an athlete roster from a diverse number of sports. We have Lindsey Vonn, Blake Griffin, Rudy Gay, Troy Polamalu, John Morant, Naomi Osaka, and now Patrick Mahomes. And if you look at those athletes, leg recovery and overall recovery, but particularly legs for all those people, their careers are on their legs the entire time. It's a pretty impressive roster. So we'll keep an eye on Hyperice, see how they do as they continue to grow, both through acquisition and new sponsorships and new athlete sponsors. And in our next news story, Intellivideo named Adam Zaitsev, the former CEO of Gold's Gym, as the new CEO of Intellivideo. Now, Zaitsev had been president of CEO of Gold's Gym until late August, when they declared bankruptcy and the Gold's Gym enterprise was sold to the RSG Group out of Germany, and Adam transitioned away from the company and now landed at Intellivideo. What is Intellivideo, you ask? Fair question. Intellivideo, it's really a video-on-demand system and what they call kind of this digital technology platform specifically for gyms and health clubs. So what they're trying to do is, for the vast majority of gyms and health clubs that don't have any IT, don't have any real digital technology platform expertise, they're looking to provide a turnkey solution to help physical gyms become physical and online/digital gyms. So with the temporary closures of health clubs to control the pandemic, the video on demand use has increased in general for the fitness industry. Think Peloton, as many health club operators have moved their classes online. So Intellivideo, they have a platform that basically is kind of relatively turnkey that allows businesses to sell their videos for secure on-demand streaming or download to almost any device. So what that gets you is your brand. They'll create an app for you, which is basically about a $5,000 fee per year. Pretty reasonable. And that app then gets cascaded out to all the key platforms, including iOS, Android, Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, so that your content can be streamed and downloaded. And they basically, from a business model perspective, basically go with a subscription pricing tier. So if your gym health club has between $0 and $500,000 monthly revenue, then the gym keeps 85%. Obviously, 15% goes to Intellivideo. If the gym or health club is between $500,000 a month and $1 million in monthly subscription revenue, the gym keeps even more. They keep 90%. Intellivideo gets 10%. And if you're in the third tier, I suspect not a lot of gyms are necessarily there yet, because if you're going to spend this kind of coin, you might just develop your own. But if you have $1 million or more in monthly recurring revenue, they say, give us a call. We'll talk and figure something out. So Intellivideo figured Zaitsev was a good choice as CEO because he's been on the other side. He's been a health club operator operating all of the corporate-owned Gold's gyms. So he understands what the gyms are trying to do, how the gyms are trying to connect with their members, what gyms are looking for in terms of solution and branding so that they can retain that customer relationship at the local gym level. And not surprisingly, Intellivideo is looking to expand their marketing resources for gyms now. So build this into their platform so gyms can use it to promote their online offerings and offer clubs help in planning their programming for how much content to stream for different member groups, depending on how many live streams to do each day, what time to host them, maybe some guidance on how to price them, etc. The other big thing that Intellivideo plans to do is to look to expand globally. So much more outside the United States, certainly grow the base in the US, but also go into Europe in health clubs, gyms. And over the next few years, they hope to build a much larger company, taking that opportunity to have health clubs expand their own membership base. So the thinking is, once the pandemic starts to subside, hopefully as soon as possible, that gyms will not stick their head in the sand and just go back to physical only, but they will look to say, hey, we need to have this omni-channel solution. We need to have an online presence where customers can take classes, work out at home if they so choose, or if they want to come to the gym physically, work out at the gym, they can do that as well. And that's where Intellivideo wants to help gyms provide that digital online offering. Now, Intellivideo's already seen growth during the pandemic. However, one of the things that's missing in some of these statistics is the base. So a lot of the statistics that the company claims are relative percentages. So as an example, they say between March and July, the percent of active subscribers that began as free trials grew from 68% to 93%. It's meaningful. It's up. They also say they have a 322% increase in active subscribers, with some individual clients seeing more than 500% subscriber-based growth. So what that doesn't really tell you is if you had 3 subscribers and you now have 15, bingo, bango, bongo, you've got 500% subscriber growth. Awesome. Doesn't give you relative numbers. So it's hard to tell, but they are clearly growing. And they also cite that the minutes of video uploaded to the platform, so their clients, gyms and health clubs, upload video to their platform, has increased by 567% in the past 3 months. So again, hard to tell what the base is that they're operating off of here, but they are generally growing. And when they look at their clients, gyms clearly want to offer this omnichannel approach. And if you don't have the IT resources to do it in-house, Intellivideo might be a good choice. And in our final news story for today, back in episode 80 of the Fitter Show, we talked about Peloton, and they've clearly been one of the biggest beneficiaries of the pandemic-related disruptions that have fueled the growth of the home fitness craze. Long-term, the fitness market may be changing as people move to an omnichannel approach, but the question today is Peloton's first-mover advantage over? Market maturity would generally suggest that future revenue and profit growth are likely to slow as larger competitors move in on their turf. Now, it's hard to argue with the success of Peloton. From its IPO in September 2019, stock is up well over 200%, whereas the S&P is up just over 12%. But the question is, while Peloton's stock performance is clearly attractive to many momentum investors, is the valuation of the company too high? It currently trades at the time of this recording at $111. So let's take a look at some of the key areas where they might start to see signs of weakness. First, let's take a look at competition. Now, clearly, Peloton has done a great job at branding and making their brand synonymous with home fitness. But if you look, they weren't really even the first company to be in the home. And you look at the roster of companies that Peloton is competing with, there's some interesting names on there. You've got Normatek, Echelon, Bowflex, Tonal, Tempo, Lululemon, who acquired Mirror. And then you've also got the Zwifts, the Apples, Trainer Road. There's a number of smaller, well, I wouldn't call Apple a small company, but that are just looking at non-connected equipment. Their connection is the app, and in Apple's case, obviously the Apple Watch. Just to call out a few of these, let's look at Lululemon, who obviously acquired Mirror for $500 million. And Lululemon, are really looking at increasing their online engagement with its customers, which has really soared. Their e-commerce accounted for over 60% of its total sales in Q2 versus just 25% a year earlier. Now, Lululemon, also huge brand name, can leverage that online engagement by marketing the Mirror and its associated subscription service to its captive customer base. Lululemon reported reaching 72 million guests through its online sweat and mindfulness hub in 2019. That's a pretty good pool to pull from. Also, you've got on the other side of the spectrum, Apple, which recently announced, obviously, Apple Fitness Plus service, which essentially requires an Apple Watch to really get any real benefit from it. Now, Apple has shipped over 53 million Apple Watches over the past 2 years, and there are well over 1 billion people using Apple devices worldwide. Again, you look at the size of the customer base into which it can market its new Apple Fitness Plus service in the future, it's non-trivial. For comparison, just to give you an idea, Peloton celebrated their 1 millionth subscriber at the end of Q4 2020. Now, good accomplishment, but when you start to look at Lululemon reaching 72 million, Apple reaching 53 million watch owners, 1 billion device owners, this is the same way they grew Apple Music. Slowly, methodically, just growing. Is Spotify still ahead? Yep, but Apple's got a huge business, and they're intertwining it into more things, including Apple Fitness Plus, to drive more Apple Music subscribers in their bundles. And that's obviously what they're doing with their Apple One service, which bundles Apple Music, Apple TV, and Apple Fitness Plus, and more of Apple's apps. But for right now, Fitness Plus isn't in direct competition with Peloton. But at some point, consumers will probably have limited discretionary spend, and Apple Fitness Plus, with its integrated watch, far, far, far less expensive. And one could argue, increased flexibility in the amount of workouts that you can do than Peloton. But for now, Peloton still holding the high ground. They're still doing well. However, one challenge that Peloton is going to have is that primarily right now, they sell hardware with an attached subscription. There's a lot of companies lining up to compete with connected fitness equipment at far lower price points than Peloton. Now, Peloton is, again, trying to position its brand at the high end and pull customers in with a differentiated experience. By the way, there are any competitive companies that are probably trying to do similar things. And they're trying to reach a goal of 100 million subscribers. Just to give that some context, Netflix has 193 million paying streaming subscribers at the end of Q2. And Netflix had an entry price point of something like $8 when they started. They've gradually increased the prices slowly relative to Peloton, where 80% of its revenue comes from the hardware. And it's going to be difficult, and we'll talk about this in a minute, with a saturated potential user base at a $2,000 to $3,000 entry price point for Peloton. So the risk here is that Peloton has kind of preloaded their sales with high-income households, and as they look to expand their marketplace into lower-income households, they're going to have more of a challenge with their current premium pricing model. Even though, I know they've taken the price of the bike down to $1,895, but still, if they really want to be more competitive in this lower household income growing segment, it may be forced to lower prices, particularly relative to competition, who will absolutely go there. And that might put pressure on profitability, or if they keep prices premium, it might limit its TAM, total available market, which makes achieving the high growth rates and their stated goal of getting to 100 million subscribers that much more difficult. On the financial side, Peloton has stated publicly that the firm will prioritize connected fitness subscribers over profitability. And that's what they've done to get where they are. They've got soaring revenue, But despite, I think they posted $1.8 billion in the last fiscal year in top-line revenue, which has grown tremendously, their core earnings fell from minus $47 million in 2018 to minus $194 million in 2019, but they did improve significantly to only a minus $4 million in fiscal 2020. But Peloton's also had negative free cash flow. They've been spending a lot on marketing. It's hard to not see a Peloton commercial on the TV. And they have spent since 2018 about $624 million of that free cash flow. Now compare that to some of their competitors that have a similar business model. So we'll look at a few. Companies like Apple, Lululemon, Netflix, Planet Fitness. And yes, I know I included Netflix. I'm not suggesting that Netflix competes in the home fitness area, but I did want to include Netflix so that you could get an idea from a recurring subscriber base what that looks like at scale, since Netflix has already achieved that. So when you look at these companies and their net operating profit, you look at companies like Apple, they have 20% net operating profit margins, big return on invested capital, and they can reach 1 billion users. Lululemon, their margins roughly around 14%, return on invested capital about 24%. They can reach roughly 72 million people. Netflix, net operating profit after taxes 14%, return on invested capital 14%, 193 million active paid subscribers. Planet Fitness, again, good margins, 20% operating profit margin after taxes, 14% return on invested capital, and about 15 million users. So you compare that with Peloton, their net operating profit is obviously negative, their return on invested capital, negative, and they currently have 1 million users. So it just kind of highlights one of the challenges that Peloton is going to have in really trying to turbocharge its growth as they need to continue to support their stock valuation. So here's an interesting exercise. If you look at the TAM, the total available market, Peloton in its investor presentation says that they have a TAM of about 15 million households. But to put a valuation on that, we need to look at each household. Let's assume they purchase one piece of equipment at $2,500, kind of the average price of the bike plus, median price in there. That is about $37 billion. Now let's also say that Peloton sells one subscription for each piece of connected equipment sold, which is a given because they require it. That's another $7 billion. So now you're up to $44 billion. And let's just say they continue to sell some percentage of their digital subscription offer, the $13 a month offering, for some other percentage. Let's throw another billion in there, which gets you to a TAM valued at $45 billion. Now, in 2020, Peloton made $1.8 billion in revenue. So they currently have 4% of their total addressable market, 4% TAM share. But now you've got Apple, Lululemon, Echelon, Normatek, Bowflex, all these people coming in. I think Peloton might find it harder to gain greater share in that $45 billion marketplace as competition ramps up. In addition, to justify the current stock price, the current valuation is $33 billion, $111 a share at present. Peloton's going to need to grow revenue at about 40% per year over the next 7 years, while dramatically increasing their net operating profit after taxes to well over 10%. And I think this is going to be increasingly more challenging for Peloton, particularly as more competition enters the space. So overall, look, Peloton has been a stellar performer in 2020 and even since its IPO in 2019. It's been a high flyer during the pandemic. It's performed exceptionally well, but at current levels, at $111 a share. Now, look, stock could go to 150 for all I know, momentum trading, but at current levels, it appears to be overbought overbought and overvalued given the growth rates implied to achieve them. And I think a combination of pricing pressure from competition, challenging customer demographics, and those extraordinary growth rates needed to support its current valuation makes Peloton a tough one at these levels. We'll keep tracking them. That's it for this week. Thanks for listening. With that, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen to The Fitterist Show. You can follow us on Instagram at FitteristMindBody and on Twitter at FitteristMind. If you enjoyed this episode, please send it to a friend or subscribe to make sure you don't miss any future episodes of The Fitterist Show. My name is Christopher Allen, and make it a magical day.